You didn't say sex. The audience likes it when you say sex.
Then I'm going to talk about me, myself, and my problems here for a little while.
The Rule 34 questions were last week.
That's not a puzzle, it's pushing blocks.
If a wave of dragons are coming to raise my town and burn my crops, that's pretty awful to me directly.
But I want to hear about your other shitty characters.
Of course, invest in a robotic Flava Flav.
This is the Debate This podcast.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the very second Debate This sidebar. We're going to do these sidebars every once in a while as bonus episodes to accompany our typical episode structure so that we have a chance to talk about things we all want to talk about as opposed to just yelling at each other over things that we don't really understand. Being that it's October now, it's basically Halloween in my book, and as the scary spice of this group, I'm here to lead us through a rousing discussion of horror games and, as the internet would say, all things spoopy. Because I like Halloween a lot, and I think that I am the only one in this group who really goes out of my way to play horror games or delve into the horror side of the video game world. So I'm curious to hear from the rest of you what, if any, horror games that you have played, and maybe even like what's the scariest game you've ever played, horror game or non-horror game.
Do we not get to introduce ourselves? Because I was really looking forward to introducing myself as Kyle Baby Spice Harper. So.
Oh, okay. Well, then in that case, let's all just go around and let's go and introduce ourselves.
I'm Kyle Baby Spice Harper.
Jesus. Can I be?
Todd.
Wait, I want to be Todd Together Thomas.
No,
Spice,
that's not the
Todd,
consistency.
There's no argument here.
Yeah, Todd is definitely Sporty Spice.
I'm Andrew. I think I'm Posh Spice because I can't think of the other ones. Henderson?
Baby Spice? You don't want to be Baby
That's
Spice?
Kyle.
I'm Baby Spice.
Oh, you're Baby
And then
Spice.
there's
Then
Ginger
maybe I
Spice.
can't think of the other ones either.
Oh, Ginger Spice. There's a Ginger.
Oh, there is a Ginger Spice.
But I can't be that. You can be that.
I could be
But
that, but I'm Scary Spice.
We thoroughly killed this joke, so let's...
All right, it is beaten
cool.
and
Let's
dead.
just
Good.
All right,
cut it
we're all
out.
together.
And-
Good.
So, moving on, like I said, I am curious to hear what is the scariest game that you've ever played, or what horror games have you played in general, and then if you have not played a horror game, what non-horror game would you consider to be the scariest game you've ever played? We'll start with Posh Spice. Andrew, I think that's what
Was
we
that
landed
me?
on.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to this because I think one thing that's going to come out of this discussion is what is a horror game? You know, because there's like the actual genre horror, but we were talking about this before we started recording, but there's a lot of games that could portray the same feelings, and I think there's a lot of like loose connections. So I guess like straight definitions of horror games. Resident Evil, obviously. I love Resident Evil. The remake on GameCube, you guys ever play that one?
Yeah.
With the Scarlet heads or whatever they call them?
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, that's really good. Resident Evil 4 is also like a masterpiece. I have watched more playthroughs than I've probably played myself. I recall PT, which was really popular for a while. The last like Kojima Konami project before he got canned.
Yeah, ripped to the project that never was.
Yeah. We've already talked at length about FNAF, so I never ever want to talk about that again.
Never.
And I've watched a few playthroughs of Silent Hill. It's like one of those games that I've always wanted to get into and just never did. And then I don't know that this is horror or not, but Bloodborne. I love Bloodborne. And it's not necessarily a scary game, but it takes place in that Lovecraftian kind of like extraterrestrial horror universe. So I'm gonna count it.
All right. Yeah, I think those are all valid answers, and I think it's worth counting Bloodborne. We'll talk a little bit more about that specifically in the next question, but moving on down the... Yeah, Todd? You look like
I want to also play.
All right, go ahead, Todd.
So I won't be quite as elaborate in what I go with, but I think to me some of the scariest games been some of the ones that have been out lately, because they're just more real. Case in point, I know we've talked about it in a prior cast, but the Outlast series is fucking horrifying. You will poop your pants. And it's the kind of poop that comes because you see the scary thing and you know it's there.
Oh,
and it's also the kind of poop that comes because you don't see the scary thing and it's going to show up out of nowhere.
Is that the big bruiser guy that you talked about, Matt?
Yes.
Yeah, who cut his own nose off, that guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and under that same kind of umbrella, the Slender game is also horrifying. I played it exactly once because I have a friend who's super into scary games. I played it once and I said I never want to play it again. I don't really even want to watch you play it. And then if we want to go for some deep cuts, there was a demo disc I got from PC Gamer back in the 90s. Had a demo for Alone in the Dark on the PC.
Oh, yeah.
And do yourself a favor and just watch the YouTube video of the first 2 minutes. Because you're this woman who ends up in this old mansion that you inherited or something because your uncle died, whatever. And if you don't figure out in the first minute that you were supposed to find a shotgun from a desk or a chest or something, this monster with all 32 pixels to himself bursts through a window and just chases you down, and it's horrifying if you don't know what you're doing. So I always would turn off the game right before the monster got me, because then that means the monster didn't get me.
Yeah, even the late 90s to mid 2000s PC games are in their own level of terrifying. There's scary shit out there in 32 pixels.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Kyle, that moves us to you. What is your scary game experience?
So my experience with horror games is limited. I haven't played too many. I had played an Oddworld demo on my original PlayStation when I was about 7 or 8. I've played Majora's Mask and Fallout, which I would both consider to be horror games, even if the series isn't a horror game. But I think the closest I've gotten to a legitimate horror game that hasn't been talked about yet is Myst, one of the original, well-known PC games, and it's not anything explicitly horrifying or scary or gory. There's no jump scares or anything like that, but the whole vibe of that mansion and that island is just off.
It's
that's
eerie.
really good.
The whole thing is eerie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's eerie in a way that people still talk about that game decades later.
What are you supposed to do?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I love unintentional horror, and I think that's something that is pretty unique to games. Being unsettling without actually trying to be. And all those old games are like that.
And I think it's something the medium is really good at. Just because with movies, and you've got that that pretty standard structure that's laid out. And games can just do a side chapter that's horror for a minute and then throw you back into the real game, or just you don't know how long. A movie is generally 2 hours long, so when you're getting to that hour and a half mark, things are going to start wrapping up. You don't always know how long a game is when you dive into a game, so you don't know if this is the big bad or a little bad or the just something that's off-putting and unsettling. So I think that's why even though I haven't played a lot of horror games, they do stand out, and they are lots of fun, and I think why they're so popular.
So to continue down the same road that I think we've sort of stumbled on organically, what other games would you consider to be horror games? I know we've talked about a lot of them already, Bloodborne and Fallout, but are there other games on your list? Or I know we were talking about this before we started recording. The big one for me that really affected me was Banjo-Kazooie with Clanker's Cavern. I don't know why it scared me so bad, but god damn it.
Was it just was it the whale? Was it Clanker the character, or was it just the setting?
I think a lot of it had to do with the setting. I've always been afraid of drowning. So just like the concept of having to swim into a giant iron thing and the possibility of getting stuck inside and not being able to get out. Like, I don't know if you guys remember old Fear Factor, like before Fear Factor got kind of, like toned down as I don't know if these people are going to die, but the first round of Fear Factor, when you weren't sure, there used to be this challenge where there was like a big like tunnel tube, and you had to swim in a circle as many laps as you could, but there were only so many like air bubbles that you could pop your head up into and take a breath, and it just made me so anxious and it freaked me out.
Well, and if we're talking about air bubbles and anxiety, we have to mention any Sonic water level ever, but we also just shit on those a lot, so I don't think we don't need to skip the rock across that pond too many times.
Yeah, but that anxiety of Clanker's Cavern, like that paired with the setting and just kind of that like murky yellow water, and Clanker, it upset me as a kid. Also, Banjo-Kazooie was hard as shit, and it kicked my ass as a little kid, and I really hated that. There weren't a lot of games that I owned that I was really bad at, but I struggled with Banjo-Kazooie. So.
Yeah, that's probably not your cup of tea.
Yeah, and like it had that platforming aspect. Like I'm down for a 3D platformer. Super Mario 64 is the god tier game in my world, but like Clanker's Cavern.
Well, it's so funny you say that because Clanker's Cavern is like my favorite level. Like I think it's very calming actually. Like the music and the environment, like it hits a lot of right notes for me. But
so Andrew also sleeps in a coffin though, so
that is true. That is true. I'm mostly dead inside.
You just referenced Super Mario 64, and I want to make a quick plug on things that were horrifying. So obviously there were like haunted levels in Super Mario 64. But does anyone remember the piano with the teeth?
Yeah. Oh my god.
No, the actual scariest thing in Super Mario 64 is that eel. In whatever water level that is, there's that eel that just bloop, shoots out, and the first time it always gets you.
And the one with its hitbox is really bad, so you think you're gonna dodge it, but you never do.
Yeah.
No.
Well, like I gotta admit, like I did some searching to be like, well, what are some older games that like are unintentionally scary? And like this one is not an original idea, but did any of you guys play the Rugrats game on the PlayStation?
Oh my god!
Oh my god, I did. I forgot that was a thing.
Two things. One, that was a pretty good game. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Mm-hmm.
But two things about that were pretty crazy. So one, there was a goose that like came after you in it would like round the corner in this maze thing, and it would just like mess with you. You did not see it coming, and that was incredible. Because it was like it's all polygonal and bad.
Yeah.
And two, there was definitely an episode where like the power was out and you had to walk around your house with a flashlight. I vaguely remember this.
Yeah, I too vaguely remember this.
And it was scary. I think you might actually use your flashlight to shoot ghosts, but it was like definitely scarier than it needed to be.
Someone out there is putting together a game theory video drawing the links between that Rugrats flashlight level and modern survival horror games.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah,
well, now that you say it, that's in there. That's the missing link.
There it is.
Well, so what's interesting is like there was a horror hard quotes for I think the NES or the Super Nintendo called Haunted House that earned itself a Wii remake in like 2010 that was awful. But it was a polygonal survival horror game where you were a blip in the blackness and you had a flashlight and you had to collect the items without getting scared by the white blips because they were ghosts. But
good.
There's a Wii remake of it. It's really bad. You shouldn't play it. But that idea of survival has been around for so long, and just like underwater levels in Sonic, the anxiety that comes with trying to survive sparks a lot of fear. So to go on that train, what makes these games scary? Like all of these non-horror games that we've talked about, things that are unintentionally scary or unintentionally horror, what makes them that way for you?
Yeah, I can take that. So I think what the nice thing about games is they give the ability to inject fear with the medium, with like actual function. So like you said, like the reason survival horror is a thing is because you literally restrict a player's moveset. Like with like Resident Evil, you have like the shitty tank controls, and you can only aim up or directly ahead. You know that manufactures anxiety because your verb set, your move set is limited. One of my favorite instances of doing this is we don't go to Ravenholm in Half-Life 2.
Okay.
And those of you not familiar, I think that's probably the most iconic level in Half-Life 2, and it's so great because it's so not like the rest of the game. But the first like fifth of Half-Life 2, it's just a straight up shooter. Like you get your pistol, you get an automatic rifle, and you go like 3 normal ass levels and just like shooting robot cops and whatever. And then all of a sudden you're given the gravity gun, which is like the main, tool in Half-Life 2. But then you go to this section called We Don't Go to Ravenholm, and everything is taken from you but the gravity gun. So you lose your pistol, you lose all your guns. So all you have is the gravity gun, and the gravity gun, again, it basically just like it was a physics sandbox, but you can like grab things in the environment, like grab tools from the tool shed, or grab like a buzzsaw and and like pull it with your gravity gun and then shoot it. So they mix that kind of concept with this scary spoopy zombie level with all of the head crabs are just like constantly attacking you. So you're getting like waves of head crabs and it's just you and your gravity gun and whatever you can find in the environment. It's so cool, and it's the only instance of that in that entire game.
So to comment on that, I think I kind of agree. Like when a game puts you in a feeling of helplessness, that you have to just like make your way out of. And like the case in point that I would have are the from Ocarina of Time, the dungeon crawlers that would like, you knew they were above you, you knew they were on the wall, whatever, but you like
the wall masters.
Yeah, but you couldn't do anything
yeah.
about them. Like you just had
Until
to like
they dropped.
Yeah.
You had to wait for them to drop.
And so if you
and then
stayed
deal
still
with
too
it.
long, they would get you, obviously, but like you just couldn't do anything. You just kind of had to like deal with it until that very specific thing happened. And I think like knowing that they were up there and knowing you couldn't do a darn thing about it, like that was horrifying.
Well, and the other thing too is it's an actual punishment. Like it's not just getting hurt.
Yeah.
It's losing progress, which is another reason why like a lot of these survival horror games are so good at what they do, is because you can lose, like in Resident Evil, you can lose hours of progress. It's like if I haven't saved and I get sidelined by a zombie dog, like that's it. Like that's 2 hours of my life gone. Like I'm not getting that back.
Yeah.
I'll jump off of that because that was the point I was going to make, was like what makes horror and video games work so well is there are consequences. The least of which being like you have to start over if you lose. Some of them have mechanics that affect your gameplay for the rest of the game and things like that. Like, and that's I think what makes horror games stand out from movies and books and stuff like that is like, a jump scare scares you in a movie. Teehee, you got scared, like joke's on you. If you miss a quick time reaction in a horror game, like Andrew said, you got scared and you feel like an idiot, and you potentially just lost hours of gameplay.
Also, fuck you, Resident Evil 4. God damn, that fish, that goddamn fish in the pond. Every time, as soon as I put my controller down to take a drink of water or something, that's the quick time event.
I never played any of the Resident Evils that had QuickTime events, and I whatever one was like the big hit to first hit the GameCube was the one that I played.
That's 4, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it 4? I didn't think that one had QuickTime events.
That started QuickTime events. Like we have QuickTime events because of Resident Evil 4.
Whatever it was, I only played it a little bit because one of my friends had it, and I would just play from his save where he had all the guns, and so I'd go kill a bunch of
Yeah.
zombies because the game where you're supposed to ration your ammo. I would just go and kill all
Todd
the
doesn't-
zombies. And
Todd
then,
doesn't like playing it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd go kill as many zombies as possible, and then just like reload the save. And be like, all right, yeah, you can keep playing the main story.
So Todd, did you make all your friends that came over play with the Mad Catz controller? And you were allowed to put in cheats,
Okay.
but they weren't.
So don't shame me into being like somehow the only teenager that did that, because
Yeah.
I don't need you to gaslight everyone else here. Like, we all gave everyone collectively.
This podcast
shitty
is
thing.
for Mad Catz controller overs.
Yeah.
If anything,
Fair.
if I made them use the Mad Catz controller, it was the one that had the turbo button on it. So, like, if we were playing Mario Kart, you could launch your wind-up Shy Guy off into orbit.
True.
I only had one Mad Catz controller, and it was a DDR pad. It wasn't even a real controller. I pride myself in stock controllers. I don't like all that third-party bullshit.
Matt didn't have any
I'm sitting
friends.
here trying to figure out how to reveal that I had only licensed Nintendo controllers without sounding like a rich douchebag. And I don't think there's a way to. So sorry, everyone.
So, in all of this, if we have all of these things that games make us uncomfortable, they force us to survive, they give us these like hours of our lives lost due to consequence, what makes it fun? Where is the joy in that for you? I know where the joy in it is for me. I'm curious about your opinion.
I mean, it's the same reason we like horror
Yeah.
in all
Yeah.
things, is like the danger that immediately goes away. It's like oh, it's fine. Like, it's just you get that adrenaline hit, you get scared, and then you realize, oh, it was I'm an idiot. Like, that's the fun of horror. That, and then I really enjoy tropes, so I love horror because it's just trope after trope after trope after trope.
Yeah.
I enjoy, so you will never find me playing a scary game by myself, period.
Same.
Just like I would never watch a scary movie by myself. But I think I enjoy the social atmosphere. So we've talked, back and forth about Until Dawn. I've played it through, I would say collectively, I think 3 times now. And every time has been with a huge group of people that, like, we are all collectively enjoying, like, the horror that is about to happen, whether it's jump scares or what. So yeah, like, for me, I enjoy that, like, social collective sharing of, like, this is horrifying. Haha, it's not real though, guys, right? Like, that's the thing that I get out of it.
I think too, like, I really get into like the design aspect of it too, because you can really be fantastical, and you can really just like break the mold in some of this stuff. So I mentioned Bloodborne earlier, but like I can't, I will not stop talking about Bloodborne. But like I
refuse.
I love Bloodborne's aesthetic because it evokes all of that just like fucking crazy like Cthulhu mythology. And like one of the recurring themes is the idea of eyes equaling truth, because that's a common thing in Cthulhu, is like the what is it, the what do you call it, the unknowing truth or whatever, the ultimate truth, and it's like we can't, truth equals madness, but a lot of the characters in Bloodborne, they attribute knowing that truth, knowing the eldritch truth, to like having more eyes. So there's literally like there's a character, and then there's different ways that people go about getting more eyes. But there's literally like a character. She's like like a witch, and she's one of the bosses you fight. And she's wearing a coat of eyeballs. Like she has, like she carries around a little dagger, and she's like maybe 4 foot tall. And her whole thing is like she's just like she tries to stab you. And she has like a little, like if she gets you, she'll jump on your back and try to like claw on your face. But like clearly she's trying to like cup out your eyes to add to her collection of eyeballs. Like it's so awesome.
Oh,
Certainly she does. I have found the images.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
So Andrew's answer reminded me also what I like about horror, and it's similar to what I like about sci-fi, is that you can say a lot you can have a lot more commentary because it's immediately like fantastical. So for both those genres, but what we're talking about horror is like you can say a lot more in the subtext of your story because then you could just like pontificating your message because they're paying attention to the story and not your crazy moral lesson or whatever.
Right.
If you, just a quick aside, if you Google image search eyeball robe woman, there's a lot of very odd bathrobes that are fashioned with eyeballs.
Todd's on a few lists now.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, mostly just from this podcast.
So what happens when you give crazy eyeball robe woman a peach super crown?
Oh God!
Just to become crazy peach or crazy eyeball
Sexy eyeball monster.
No, okay, so we're doing this now. So what's been the weirdest one that you've seen so far? The Ridley-ette was pretty weird.
Ridley-ette was
The
pretty
Ridley one
weird.
was weird.
Yeah. There was a Chompette that I saw that was very strange. I've seen a lot of them. My God.
Yeah, I haven't delved.
My favorite, like thematically, has been Bouette.
Yeah,
Bouette, I really enjoyed because
I've
it was
seen a
basically
couple
Peach with
Bouettes.
like fangs. I've got a question for you though.
hit me.
I'm gonna hit you with 3 real quick.
Is this like a
Waluigi-ette,
saw that one?
Oh, I see. I'm looking at Waluigi now.
Yeah.
Dry Bonesette,
Ooh, didn't see that.
Hammer Brosette. Fuck, marry, kill. Let's go right now.
Hold on, I gotta get images of all of these. So it was
same.
I've admittedly made up the last 2. I assumed Waluigi-ette was already real.
Waluigi-ette is already real.
Oh yeah, I found something on Reddit. It was like kinks as shown through Super Crown memes.
Oh god.
So there's like Piranha Plant-ette, Booze-ette, I see your Dry Bones-ette, Yoshi-ette, Lakitu-ette, like the Cloud Rider.
Yeah, I like that.
I want to
There's
get out
just
of here.
no
now.
saving us. I do too.
So I found a Dry
yeah.
Bones. The Dry Bones one, if you do Dry Bones Super Crown on Google Images, it's the first thing that comes up. And it was Hammer Bro's Super Crown. Doesn't
I don't know,
look like
that can't be real. That's not a thing.
Yeah, it
yet.
doesn't look like there's any of that one yet.
I just want to let all our listeners know we imposed a challenge on ourselves to whoever can bring this topic up.
Oh,
most
Dry Bone
organically.
Super Crown is so cool.
Yeah.
And we all lost. All of you lost.
You also
all of
lost.
us lost. I lost.
It's like Aliens versus Predators. Whoever wins, we lose.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're curious, I believe the answer is you marry Dry Bones-ette, you have consensual relations with Hammer Brosette, and you have to kill Waluigi-ette. You have to kill the Waluigi-ette.
See,
Can you kill Waluigi-ette?
I was gonna switch Waluigi-ette and the Hammer Bros. I don't know that I want to commit myself to consensual relations with something I've never seen. It makes me nervous.
Waluigi-ette's pencil-thin mustache is just too much.
It is something, that is for sure. All right, well, enough of that, and back to the podcast. So
Too much of that.
in fact, yeah. Let's go a completely different direction. Let's not talk about games here for a minute. What are some other scary things that you enjoy or that you find fun? Are any of you guys fans of haunted houses or corn mazes or movies or music or comic books or other things? Talk to me.
I enjoy a good haunted house. I remember, so I did a cornfield maze years and years and years ago. Get it? Cornfield maze? There's a pun there. And
Stop it.
Go away.
I need you to acknowledge it before I move on. And that was pretty neat too. But yeah, I didn't like haunted houses when I was younger. But it's one of those things. I think it's neat to get people together and go and do that. Because again, same thing. Like, let's all share in being scared together. Because like no one goes to a haunted house by themselves unless they're just real weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
So I
trust
love-
that person.
So I love I love horror homages. Like I'm not the biggest. I won't go out and watch every single horror movie that comes out, but I know the classics, and I love when a TV show or a comic or something pokes fun or throws back or puts some Easter eggs in to some of those classic horror movies. Stranger Things was just the best for me because it was like 20 hours of find all the Easter eggs.
Yeah.
And
That's a good example, yeah.
And I love when, you know, all the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episodes, you know, when an established IP breaks its format to do a horror episode or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, that when there's a Superman arc in the comics, it's told from Lex Luthor's point of view, that is that paints Superman as this horrifying creature from outer space and why we should all be afraid of him. It's shot entirely like, or not shot, but it's framed entirely like a Predator movie is, but it's about Superman. It's about why like this super strong, indestructible god that shoots beams from his eyes is something we should be worried about. And and I like things like that too, that kind of turn things on their head like that.
Yeah. So The Shining is both one of my favorite movies and one of my favorite books. I'm one of those weirdos. But I love them both for very different reasons, obviously. After I played Bloodborne the first time, I got super into like Call of Cthulhu and like the Eldritch horror stuff. So I'm always down for that. Like anything that's like otherworldly, like that like Eldritch knowledge is I'm so fucking down.
That's another so for those of you who don't know me that listen at home, I like to play Magic the Gathering. And Magic has done 2 horror sets now, and they were 2 of the best blocks of Magic that have ever come out. The first one was like traditional horror with werewolves and vampires and like Frankenstein zombies and Walking Dead zombies, and then the second one that came out, they took all that and kind of scooted it aside and was like, that's still here, but also we have Eldritch horror influencing all of that, and it was incredible. It's called the set is called Innistrad. You play Magic and don't know about Innistrad. What are you doing?
This episode I ever got.
This episode is sponsored by Innistrad.
Yeah.
Innistrad, the deck you use if you like scary things.
And that is our low water mark for nerdiest we will get.
I still have my all Innistrad blue-black zombie deck, and it's my favorite deck I've ever made.
So to take all of these other things that we enjoy, are there elements that these non-game horror things contain that you feel like could be added into video games or could be added into horror games to, I don't know, make them more appealing to you maybe as 3 guys who don't play a lot of horror games or go out of your way to play a lot of horror games, or maybe just could be added into regular games to give them that extra spice in their life that would change things up a little bit? Are there elements that you could pull from non-game things and put them into games?
I'm sure I'll get blasted with all the answers to this question, but I would love a co-op horror survival game that everyone plays on the same console in the same room, a la any console before the PS3 and Xbox 360 came out.
Like a better Left 4 Dead?
Yes, I think that would get me to play that particular horror game so hard, because those are the kinds of games I like to play anyway, is like the co-op, 4-player co-op, all in one room games. And I think a horror survival filling that niche would be incredible.
There was, I feel like Andrew and we lived together after college. There was a pixelated shooter for 4 people that I had on my Xbox for a while, and I can't remember. I'm sure it was some weird ass indie game, but it was like a Zombies Ate My Neighbors kind of remake where,
Oh man,
yeah, there's a deep cut, and so
that game is so hard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but you
stupid
could
hard.
you would have 4 people, and like you were fighting undead waves of things that kind of rolled in. But yeah, like I completely agree with you, Kyle. Like that's a neat concept that I don't think has been done, at least not very well, or to my knowledge.
I'm sure there are examples out there, but I'm talking like AA or AAA level game would be incredible.
I would go back to kind of one of the things that we've said already. When Andrew referenced, in Half-Life where you suddenly like lose all your gear except for the gravity gun, like I think any game that like makes you feel helpless after you have nearly everything is just good.
I think that's an important distinction too to make. It's giving you power and then taking it away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is not something that I feel like survival horror does very well, because it just limits your verb set the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you suddenly your character gets humbled and it changes the way that you have to play like very drastically, and then when you get it back, whatever that it was, you're like, oh shit, like again. There's actually a legitimate relief.
Yeah,
this was one I should have talked about in games that aren't horror games but have horror elements. I think every Metroid game does that.
Yeah,
and I would consider the Metroid games like horror scrollers, horror platformers, sci-fi horror scrollers, but they all start you out. You've got all the power-ups from the last game, and then you get to the new planet, the new big bad slaps you, and they're like, to save your life, we had to take all your power-ups. Sorry, like
no, that's a really good point, and I just thought of Metroid Fusion when you're running from like the Samus, like you're literally, it's the copy of Samus from Super Metroid, and it's just like it's a monster. It's horrifying, and it's just like that music's playing, and it's like you have no way to fight back. You just have to run.
Yeah.
Metroid Fusion, probably the best game in the series, and you can all at me and fight me on that, because
it's at least second to Super Metroid.
Incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and even Breath of the Wild did a great job of that. Like everybody's first time on Eventide sucks. The first time they're like, "Oh yeah, and you have a stick and a leaf." You're like, "Oh god, it's been a long time since I've only had a stick and a leaf." But there, the only horror game that I can think of right off, well, I guess the two that do a good job of that are Outlast, because there's, you've got this whole, the first like 80%, 70% of Outlast, you've got your camera. And you've got night vision, you've got, something to hide behind in a sense. And then 3/4 of the way through the game, they take your camera away for like, an episode of it. And suddenly you're like, well, now I can't see in the dark, and I'm looking at scary things instead of looking at scary things on a camera. And then Until Dawn does that too, when you're switching back and forth between characters. And Todd, like every once in a while you'll have a character with a gun, and then you're back to a character who doesn't have a gun. Can
I ask a really dumb question?
Sure.
Because I know nothing about those games. Are those like shooters, or are they more like adventure games?
Outlast is entirely like a defensive
run and hide.
Yeah, a defensive adventure horror game, survival game. Yeah. Until
Dawn. Yeah, I would classify that as more as like a survivor thriller.
Yeah. It's selectively combative. Like you have opportunities,
so like kind of like a Last of Us almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you have like quick time events where you have to make decisions.
Gotcha.
And I mean, probably the craziest thing that it does, which is probably again the most nervous thing that it does, is when you play it at certain point in times, like your character has to stay really still so it doesn't get spotted. And you, like if you're playing from a PS4, because you will be, and it like says like hold your controller as still as possible, like don't move your controller.
Oh, that's cool.
And like you're just sitting there like holding your breath
Yeah.
as like whatever is trying to find you that you don't want to be found by is like hovering over your character, and you're just like, oh fuck, oh fuck,
Yeah.
oh fuck, oh
Yeah.
fuck.
Well,
Like,
I guess
it's
I mentioned it,
nerving.
but I didn't really dive in. But I guess we should, now that it's out there, The Last of Us. That's probably a good example too.
Yeah.
Of using sound, like trying to, inject the player in there a little bit. We're like, okay, don't move. Like your character will create sound, and you just have to watch as like something like walks by you. I don't think The Last of Us does it that well, but I know what at least that's what they were going for.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
let's move forward from this, because if you want to talk about burying the lead, I'm going to ask maybe the most hotly contested question in the horror game circle right now, and I'm going to ask it in the last 10 minutes of this show. So, jump scares are, I think, by far the most contested part of horror. Whether or not being surprised is the same as being scared. And do jump scares have a place in video games? Do games like Five Nights at Freddy's that are just jump scares belong in the same pantheon as survival horror games, and the Telltale series and things like that? And so I'm interested on your opinion. How do you feel about jump scares? Do you have jump scare memories? Because God knows I do. And do you think that there is a difference between being scared and being surprised, and how does that apply to what you want in horror games?
I've got the hottest take.
Lay the spice on me.
So-
Give me something. Give me something just as hot as Bowsette was the first time we saw her.
Waluigi et's pencil thin mustache. Yeah, so I think that jump scares do have a place in video games because I think that they are valid. If you have not played a video game and had a jump scare legitimately scare you, then you're lying. And if you did play a video game and have a jump scare you, then, mission accomplished. Like that was the plan and it worked, I don't think that you can, like, no one has played or watched I've never played Five Nights at Freddy's, but I've watched probably 5 hours of playthrough stuff, and I've jumped. And I'm not even playing the game. Like, I see what's going to happen. I have no control, Like, that's the thing. Do I think they're exclusively the only kind of scares? No. Do I think you could, if you have exclusively jump scares, I think that gets a little hokey, but I think that it's incredibly valid. I do think in the balance of being scared or being surprised, it's more of the latter, less of the former. Like, I think something jumped out and surprised you, but that's also scary. But yeah, I mean, I think that jump scares are valid. I don't think that they make a good game on their own.
Well, I think Five Nights at Freddy's is a good example because I have the same experience where I've never played it. I've watched a couple playthroughs, but I also never have a desire to play it. Like, I feel like I have experienced everything that I'm going to experience. Like, I've seen it. Okay, I get it. It's novel. But I would never actually go play it. Whereas, like, I would, if I had Silent Hill 2 here for my place, I would boot that up, like, right now just to play it. Because, like, that's an experience that I can have. I can engross in the story. I can feel at unease and, like, feel what the character's feeling. And Five Nights at Freddy's, that the jump scares, while that's valid, it just feels cheap in comparison.
I think jump scares are, like anything else, a tool in the storyteller's arsenal. And like the other two have said, if you only use jump scares, they're going to lose their effectiveness real quickly, and you're just going to be looking for them all the time. However, the horror movie that's only got one jump scare in it is gonna make you crap your pants. Like,
yeah.
And even better than that, the ones I love, the fake out jump scares.
Yeah.
The one my jump scare story that sticks with me was from the not great movie. Is it Disturbia?
Oh, Shia LaBeouf
the Shia LaBeouf movie.
Okay.
There's a good jump scare where they build and build and build, and the music swells and everything, and it's a jump scare and it's a cat.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, haha, it's a cat, it got me. And then he like shuts a door, and the scary ass neighbor is behind the door, and it catches you completely off guard because the fake jump scare set up the real jump scare, and it was very well executed. That said, I can't think of them because they're so forgettable when they happen. Any movie that's just like jump scare, gore, jump scare.
Well, I think a prime example
loses its effect.
So look at, the Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Movie. So I mean, those. I mean, they balanced out like jump scares and like just creepy, eerie shit. But it was like this anticipation that you knew something big and jumpy was going to happen, and so you almost were like exhausted after a certain point because you're just like, fuck, like how many more of these can you do to me? Like I'm not like they were bad.
By
and
the
now they're
third
just,
movie, they were 90% jump scares.
But I think too,
and 10% bad lore too.
It cheapens, because as a result, I think it cheapens the genre, and we haven't seen it as much with horror. Maybe it's not as well defined, but like look at Get Out. Like, did any of you guys see Get Out?
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's such a good movie. But like, Get Out should have, it was nominated for like comedy, right? Like, it was a horror movie, but there is no horror category at the Oscars because horror is thought of as a less than genre because of just the slog of like, Friday the 13th style like slasher movies. And there's nothing wrong with those movies. They're fine in their own right. But and I think this is what's happening to games is like Until Dawn sounds like awesome and Outlast sounds awesome. I've never played or barely heard of those games because I didn't seek them out. Like I don't know enough about the genre to seek it out. But I sure as hell know about Five Nights at Freddy's, you know what I mean? Like it just it tends to cheapen it, I think.
It's kind of a loaded question because if you took out all jump scares, you'd obviously be like taking out a decent chunk of like what makes horror. Like you could still tell horror stories without jump scares, but like even when you're telling ghost stories around a campfire, the people who tell those really well work in a jump scare with the 5 people they're sitting at the same campfire with. And that said, everything Andrew and Todd and I have said about them being overused and stuff is valid. But to take them out completely, I think is a poor argument to make. All
right. I think that pretty much encompasses not only our thoughts, but sort of the thoughts of the world right now as well. It's to a point where some of these things are getting washed out and overused, and it cheapens the effect, but at the same time, you take it all away, and it's just not the same thing anymore. And I think that's a great way to sort of wrap up this discussion, as everything we've talked about has included at least one of these pieces tastefully somehow. There's some little piece of a... Go ahead, Kyle.
Tastefully? Did we do something tastefully on this podcast?
I mean, sorry, you said tastefully, and all I can think about is Waluigiette still. that sexy Waluigiette.
There's reference number 3 to the Super Crown, if anybody wasn't sure.
Oh man.
Dry Bonesette is my lady.
All right, here's the super secret bonus question of the week to kick off our October-a-thon of Halloween-related content. My super secret bonus question is, what are you going to be for Halloween this year?
Disappointed, because I hate putting effort into Halloween costumes.
Yeah.
The last time I put any effort into one was like 2014, and it was because I went all out and made like a Winter Soldier costume and like had the vest, had the mask, made a paper mache arm, and like just to get drunk with a bunch of friends for a couple hours.
right.
Yeah. I was like, why did I do all this? And so last year I bought a $20 Walmart hot dog outfit. So if you were a betting man, I would say Walmart hot dog outfit.
Hot dog.
Good.
Similar to Todd, I'll probably decide in the day or two before Halloween.
Yep.
The last time I put a serious amount of effort into my Halloween costume was probably 2009 or 10. I made like actual metal Wolverine claws to be Wolverine, and then again hung out in a house,
Drunk with friends. Yep.
Yeah. This past Halloween, I made my costume out of a coat hanger and some green folded paper, and I was a sim. And I'll probably do something as creative and low effort as that.
If you're gonna be a sim, can you at least make it a red one and just like cry a lot?
Unhappy sim. I did my one like go big was Marty McFly. I had like I borrowed a puffy vest from my then girlfriend, now wife, and
bought a DeLorean, which
I did buy a DeLorean. It was a pricey move, but it was worth it.
It paid off.
Probably will end up just wearing jeans and a backpack and calling myself a Pokemon trainer.
Solid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as the
one who push comes.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say, push comes to shove, I might throw on a hoodie and sunglasses and be a Marvel character in hiding.
There you go.
Captain America in that one scene.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I for those who don't know me off the podcast, work professionally as a haunted house actor, and so my life has been nothing but costumes every October for 10 years. But I was thinking about maybe doing a Wiimote, and just wearing all white and taping some buttons to myself and being a Wiimote.
Good.
Nice.
Yeah. So I think that with that's going to do it for this debate, this sidebar. You can follow along with our discussions on Twitter and Facebook at DebateThisCast and at debatethiscast.com to let us know what you think, which is important, especially going into this month where we are going to be filling it with all sorts of crazy fun Halloween content weekly. Correct? Did I get that right? Are we doing this every week?
Yeah. Do you want to
we're gonna have a new episode every week of October, and we will be filling our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook pages with all the Halloween themed comic and video game related content and memes we can find until you all tell your friends about us or you unfollow us because it's too obnoxious.
We will extend Halloween all the way to Thanksgiving, you sons of bitches. We will do it.
You thought Christmas came early, get ready for Halloween to come late, because we are in this one for the long haul.
We're also gonna try our hand at streaming. We're probably the first podcast to ever do this, I think.
I didn't search yet, but I'm pretty confident, so no one else look.
Yeah, there's not a lot of gaming content out there. It's this site, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called Twitch.
Yeah, it's kind of underground, super indie. Not a lot of people use it.
Yeah, but no, we're really excited. So we're gonna play Until Dawn, which is we've obviously talked about a lot, and this was as a result of us accidentally spilling the beans a couple episodes ago. But I have never played it, but the rest of these cats have. So I'm going to play it, and we're going to stream that. We're thinking right now it's going to be the 27th, but we'll probably load that, turn it into a video on demand as well.
Yeah.
So we're super pumped.
And I would like to clarify, we are not playing Until Dawn. Andrew is playing Until Dawn.
Yes.
Kyle,
and
Todd,
we are
and I will laugh at him.
And we are heckling him.
Yeah. And it's going to be great, and I'm super looking forward to it. But until then, if you disagree with our arguments and decisions, then we are challenging you to come fight us behind the swing sets, nerds.